I don't want you guys to be making mistakes that I see a lot of people making with color correction and color grading, so let's dive in and do some learning. This video is not sponsored in any way, but it is brought to you by those who have enrolled in the FCP Color Grading Masterclass. So the first mistake you might be making is using your temperature and tint sliders to color balance your shots. This is something I see creators do a lot, and it's not the right way to go about color correction. Usually shots are unbalanced due to incorrect white balance settings in camera. Typically, this causes your entire shot to swing towards an unwanted color. Pretend this gradient, which should be black and white, is your footage with white balance issues. Watch what a temperature and tint slider adjustment does. Notice how the shadows aren't really adjusted. Now watch what a push to your global hue slider will do to balance this shot. It fully takes out that blue cast to get the shot to a more balanced level. So that is the issue with the temperature and tint sliders for color balancing. Your black point stays locked in to that incorrect color and doesn't get corrected with the rest of your footage. The second mistake you might be making is not taking care of skin tones. Skin should generally be a certain brightness, a certain saturation, and a certain color. Not always, because certain stylized looks will have skin way off, but for a natural clean look, they should be within certain values. For brightness, skin should generally lie between 30 IRE and 80 IRE, depending on a person's complexion and the environment they're in. Skin color should fall on this line, which is aptly named the skin tone line. No matter what race or ethnicity, skin should naturally lie on this line on the vector scope. And skin saturation should generally be 10 to 40% of the skin tone line if you connect the yellow and red hue. The third mistake you might be making is neglecting your color curves. These are one of my favorite tools for color correcting and color grading. And in Final Cut Pro, the ability to change the hue of all of them makes it so easy to hop in and create looks with specific colors. The same can be said for color correction. If your shot has a specific color cast in, let's say, your midtones, you can pull up that color that's cast on your shot, pull down to subtract that color from your midtones, and that will balance out your shot a little more. Now, of course, you could use your wheels, but I find the curves to be fun for some reason.
Nerd.
The fourth mistake is more of a beginner mistake, but one I see all the time, even from non-beginners, and that's overexposing and underexposing your footage. By using your Luma waveform, which measures brightness, if you notice that your shot is going past the 100 IRE line, this means you are blowing out your highlights, essentially erasing detail in the very brightest parts of your shot. And if your shot is below 0, it means you're erasing detail in the very darkest parts of your shot. Staying within these boundaries is an important rule to follow. Although I want to point out that crushing your blacks isn't always a bad thing, it can be used for stylized purposes. Having highlights that are blown out, though, is a surefire way to make your footage look amateurish. Want to know immediately if you're making these exposure mistakes? Go to View, go down to Range Check, and hit Luma. Then you'll be warned with zebras when you go past 100 IRE or below 0. The fifth mistake kind of plays on the previous one, and it is an issue I see all the time, and that is overly saturated white and black points. If you're color grading and you push colors into parts of your shot, there's a chance you're also pushing color into parts of your shot that generally should be black or white. For example, in this shot, there's way too much of a color cast on his hair caused by our color grade. It makes it look amateurish and unnatural. So let's hop into our HSL curves, go down to Luma versus Sat, which adjusts the intensity of color in different brightness values. And pull down on the left end here to desaturate only the very darkest parts of your shot to clean this up. If your color grade has clean blacks, whites, and accurate skin tones, everything else can work no matter how far you push the grade, within reason, of course. The next mistake you might be making is with log footage. I highly recommend not transforming log footage to Rec 709 by using the Camera LUT tab in the inspector window. If your shot is overexposed or underexposed, applying the transform in that tab basically gives you no ability to get that erased detail back. However, using the custom LUT effect in your effects browser instead gives you the option to make adjustments before the input LUT so you can access the wider tonal range and color information in the log footage to get that detail back. This process is useful for color balancing as well. The seventh mistake I'm kind of throwing in to remind myself, and that's that you don't always have to overcomplicate your grade. Often, I'll make lots of secondary corrections. I'll add shape masks to draw attention to specific areas of my shot. I'll use color masks to isolate specific HSL values in my shot. And while this is a thorough way to create a color grade, it's not always necessary. Plus, it can make your time shot matching increase quite a bit. So just know when you should put in more work and when you shouldn't. With commercials and shorter videos, putting in more work is often done because of the amount of clips in those projects. But with films, you may consider dialing it back due to the huge amount of footage you'll need to grade and match. The eighth mistake is not considering the story and mood of your video when creating a color grade. Color grading should serve the narrative and mood of the project. So if you're creating a war film, you wouldn't add bright pastel tints to the color grade. And if you're creating a video that is educational, you maybe shouldn't make your video look like Blade Runner 2049. This is part of color theory, which is something I go over in the FCP color grading masterclass. The ninth mistake is not a glamorous one, but an important one. Don't make the mistake of avoiding using your video scopes. They are extremely helpful, and the best way to identify when areas of your shot are not where they should be, and also learn how to use them correctly. For example, I see people using the RGB parade and their RGB overlay to add contrast and adjust brightness all the time, when they should be using their Luma waveform. Even Tyler Stallman was doing it in this popular color grading video for FCP. And no shade to Tyler, I love the guy, but here's why that's incorrect. For example, looking at the Luma waveform for this shot, it shows that our brightness is sitting in the appropriate values, so above 0 IRE and below 100 IRE. Yet, when we switch to the RGB parade or the RGB overlay, and these two scopes show the same thing by the way, one is just combined, you'll notice that we're going above the 100 IRE line. I've seen people then go in and adjust their exposure to get it within range, when they don't need to, and they're better off not doing that. All they need to do is usually make some type of saturation or color adjustment to get it to a normal level. And doing that ensures that the brightness of the shot doesn't change, because it didn't need to in the first place. The 10th mistake is not using your comparison viewer to shot match. You can pull it up by pressing the shortcut Control, Command, and 6, or by going to Window, Show in Workspace, Comparison Viewer. This gives you a side-by-side comparison of either shots on your timeline or shots you have saved in your frame browser. This way, you can shot match and create similar looks more accurately. If you learned some things in this video, you will learn way more in the FCP Color Grading Masterclass. The course goes way more in depth, and it even gives you access to log and Rec 709 clips that you can practice on while following along with the lesson. Have a great rest of your day, guys.